the Biden administration has abandoned the immigration laws of America. He knows that Americans are dying every day because of the fentanyl that he allows to be smuggled into the United States. The Biden administration and a lot of leaders in Congress have no idea about the chaos they have caused by their open border policies. And they refuse to come down and see firsthand and talk to the people who are really most adversely affected. And if they're not going to come to the border, I'm going to take the border to them.
It was not a hollow threat. Texas Governor Abbott meant what he said. And those blistering remarks come as his state is sending a second busload now filled with illegal immigrants that the feds dumped in his state. He's returning them to the nation's capital overnight. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki dismissed the move with her usual brand of snark.
These are all migrants who have been processed by CBP and are free to travel, so it's nice the state of Texas is helping them get to their final destination as they await in their outcome of their immigration proceedings.
If only she could be serious. Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary and a Fox News contributor, your top line thoughts.
How can they not take this seriously? I think when the governor says, since the administration won't come to the border, we'll bring the border to them, he is 100% right. Look, Harris, I live in Westchester County, New York, where there have been all these midnight flights about bringing people who came into America illegally to my home county. So if they can fly people to my home county, then what's wrong with the governor of Texas bringing people to Washington, D.C.? They need to live it, feel it, and see it the way people in the border states do. This is a cry of desperation. It's an act of desperation because they're overwhelmed and overcome. So I don't blame Texas one bit.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is looking at doing something just like this. Your response?
And he should. I think all governors should do this. I think Washington, D.C., especially the Democrats who control the Congress, who have looked the other way, who actually want, for their political interests, to have people come into America illegally. To them, there is no distinction morally or legally between somebody coming here legally and illegally. These people need to see just how bad the situation is. So I hope that there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people who are brought to Washington, D.C. Let the District of Columbia handle it. Let the United States Congress handle it. Let President Biden handle it. Why do the states have to get overwhelmed with it? This is the federal government's creation. The federal government needs to live up to its obligations, and if they won't, bring the people coming illegally to Washington and force it on.
Ari, you are one of the first to ever call out a stunt when you see one, and you're seeing merit in this. And look, if anybody thought that Abbott was kidding or thinks that DeSantis is, well, the people are arriving. We'll see what happens next.
Look,
go ahead, real quick.
After 2 years, after 2 years, it's not a stunt. They're fed up. This is despair.
Republicans are ripping into the Biden administration over its extension of the travel mask mandate as they are ready to lift the Title 42 at the border, which is what Ari and I are talking about. Okay, so that wipes away the way that we were dealing with people who might come in with COVID. We're going to keep them south of the border. Now they could just flow in. We certainly don't have the capacity to test them all. We're giving as many as we can masks. But anyway, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says this White House is using the pandemic as a pretext to shamelessly pick and choose liberal policies to advance. Senator Tom Cotton said this: talk about putting Americans last. Kentucky Congressman James Comer said this:
it's just hypocrisy. I didn't see any of the illegals wearing a mask when they came to the United States. Every single person in the airport's wearing a mask, but yet these illegals, to the tune of over 2 million, are crossing over the border, going in the detention facilities, then being spread out all across America. They're not wearing masks.
And as I said, we try to mask them as they come in, but my gosh, what kind of a job could that be? Our border agents are already under so much pressure dealing with the onslaught of people.
Yeah, and just from a public health point of view, if there is a public health crisis that requires us to wear masks to save lives, then every one of us should wear a mask basically everywhere. But they act as if COVID is only spread by bad people. That if you're an illegal immigrant coming to America for better opportunities, you're a good person and therefore you're not going to spread COVID, so we won't treat you like you do. But we will treat travelers, American travelers, people who legally board airplanes, as if they have COVID, so they have to wear a mask. It makes no health sense. You can't pick and choose. It's either that bad that we need to mask up, or it's not. You can't have some do it and others not. It makes no, look, these airports have soaring ceilings. I was just in Washington's airport.
Yeah.
The ceiling's got to be 100 feet high. And they're saying you got to wear a mask in that environment, but you don't at the hotel that you stayed at on your way to the airport. It makes no sense. Harris, this is government saying, don't just stand there, do something. Even if the do something has no impact and no meaning. This is government at its worst.
We're entering the third year of this. It is old. It is flat like old soda. Let's talk numbers. Inflation hitting another 40-year record. New Labor Department statistics show wholesale inflation also hit a record high. It surged more than 11% last month from a year earlier. That means retailers will likely pass on those costs to consumers as Americans are already struggling to afford just the basics. So now everything gets more expensive, not just the stuff that you can't live without. The wholesale cost of vegetables up 82%, grains up 40%. That's the stuff we can't live without. Amazon now says it will charge sellers a 5% fuel and inflation surcharge for the first time in the company's history. Now let's get to some of the stuff we don't need, because maybe we don't need everything off of Amazon, which then hurts Amazon, which employs a lot of people. The price hikes have sparked big bipartisan concern. Democratic Congressman Jim Himes says if we're going to be serious about the middle class, it's very different from whatever way it was 70 years ago. And as the Biden administration continues to blame price hikes on Putin and some Republicans warn inflation is going to get worse, let's watch.
Seems to me we're clearly in a wage price spiral that is worsening each month. I think the president is in denial about this, as he was about inflation and the worker shortage.
Ari.
Yeah, you know, the reason this hurts so much, Harris, I was trying to think about this. You know, if you hear the deficit went up $100 billion, you know it's bad, but it doesn't really touch you, does it? If you hear the Social Security Trust Fund is going to go broke in 9 years instead of 11 years, you know it's bad, but it doesn't touch you. This touches each of us every day, and the things that are most meaningful to us in our lives. When you fill your tank up with gas, I just crossed $100 filling up my SUV for the first time. When you go to buy milk, when you go to buy eggs, when you travel, everything going up touches the voters, the people, every single day. And that's why Joe Biden is going to take the brunt of the blame for this, not Vladimir Putin. And the single most important thing he could do would be to unleash America's energy supplies. If we had more gas, if we had more oil,
why
if we
won't
had
he
more
do it?
Everything energy-wise, because of the Green New Deal.
Yeah, but
Because
he's already
he is beholden-
breaking the Green New Deal, Ari. I mean, look at this. We're willing to buy oil from the dirtiest supplier on the planet, Venezuela. I mean, he's not serious about green energy, Biden isn't. He's not serious.
He'll break the new Green New Deal with permission, but he won't break its fundamentals because he can't. Joe Biden is doing to America exactly what German leaders in the early 2000s did when they shut down their nuclear power plants and said we're going to depend on Russia. There's no difference. Biden is shutting down, diminishing America's fossil fuel supplies, driving up the prices because of his adherence to the Green New Deal. If he'd increase energy, it'd be the strongest thing he could do to combat inflation.
What you just said was the line of the year. I mean, comparing him to what the Germans did with Russia or what Europeans did with Russia, leaning on them ever so much. Wow. Ari
When you
Fleischer.
shut down one source, you open up the other.
100%. Good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.